Welcome to Guerilla Sports Off Ice post-game live, brought to you by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payment. Go to trustedamerican.com today and see how much money they can save you. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Final from Pittsburgh, 6-2. The Avs round out what was a solid road trip. Meghan, 4-1 on the 5-game East Coast swing. You got to be feeling good about this one. You got to be feeling good about the trip as a whole. A 5-point night for Nathan MacKinnon. A 5-point night for Mikko Rantanen, including a hat trick. We said at the intermission that it was great that the top guys are going, but you wanted to see a little bit more from your depth. Well, the top guys said, nah, don't need it. We'll carry it the rest of the way. Meghan, your overall thoughts on this trip? I don't want to go too far. It's one game. Mackenzie Blackwood didn't even play tonight. But we said off the top in the first intermission that it felt like a breath of fresh life had been breathed into this team. And it feels like 4-1 coming home from this trip. You put yourself firmly back in a playoff spot. You're tied with the Dallas Stars from a points perspective. And you're only 6 points back of the division lead. Man, it feels like there is some real reasons to be encouraged by not only what we saw on this trip, but just by what the Avs have built to this point.
Just inside this game, to answer with 3 goals unanswered after what was a little bit of a disappointing second period, especially after such a strong first, I think says a lot about where this team is at mentally in terms of the pride that they play with, making the necessary adjustments and returning to playing hockey the way that they need to, because the 6-2 final is a pretty dominant result. They didn't have to win this game in a dominant fashion, but the hockey that we've seen from them, even looking at the recent New Jersey game, it's been really good lately. And I think that they're sending a message to the rest of the league in what they are. I know Logan O'Connor at the start of this year too had felt maybe nationally the view of this team has taken a few steps back, that maybe people don't view them as much a threat as they once did before. And he was hoping that this would be a year to sort of put them back on the map. And obviously with so many injuries, that's been really hard for them to do. But seeing them even still with so many injuries throughout this lineup, playing this kind of hockey, it feels like what they have been hoping to build towards, at least so far through this year.
Nathan MacKinnon pulls himself back into the league lead in points, finishes the night with 46 points, 3 points clear of Marty Netchis, who is in second. And Mikko Rantanen, Meghan, pulls himself into third place with 42 points league-wide. I love what you said there about them sending a message to the team. Oh, look at that. They're sending a message to the rest of the league of, hey, we haven't gone anywhere. We are still a serious contender, and we're getting things back on track here. I want to start with Scott Wedgwood and really just the goaltending as a whole, because we're sitting here talking about the fact that it feels like there's new energy for this team, and it feels like the goaltending changes have really given this team a new batch of confidence to play from. And to me, it looks like the results are translating directly onto the ice. Scott Wedgwood was not perfect tonight. There was the first one in particular, you say, yeah, he probably wants that one back. That one's probably got to be, a little bit better. But again, we're watching some of the highlights as here after the game. It's just quality stops, battling in net, finding pucks, finding rebounds, and finding ways to come up with saves. To me, Scott Wedgwood looks like he understands the urgency of playing for this team, and he understands exactly why he was brought in. And I just don't think that Scott Wedgwood, he's not going to be your starter. That's Mackenzie Blackwood. But Scott Wedgwood has given you every last thing you were hoping he could give you when you're talking about acquiring a backup goalie in the week plus that he's been here, right down to tonight. I think he's been really, really good for the Avs and was again tonight.
Coming out of the second period, the expected goals against was just under 2. So you felt a little bit, disappointment's a crazy word to use here.
But I know what you mean.
But by the finish of this game, because Pittsburgh did not go away and Colorado took a few more penalties in the third period, Pittsburgh stayed in the shots battle, and it finishes expected goals against 2.29. So Scott Wedgwood, though not a perfect game, still comes out on top, coming up with saves that maybe analytically he wasn't supposed to. And I look at Pavel Francouz when he was the backup that pushed for different types of conversations at points, and the team played better in front of him. It seemed. I remember having that conversation often, like, it's never, unless it's a scheduled start, necessarily a good thing if you're seeing your backup goalie, but sure is great to see the way in which the team rallies around Francouz when he is in net. It feels really similar with Wedgwood, that there is this sense of pride. They like this guy in net, and they want to play well in front of him. And so, not a great defensive second period. They make some adjustments going into the third. I still wish they didn't take the too many men penalty. I have some frustrations about that, but the otherwise cleaned up aspects of their game and made it competitive by providing some insurance in the form of goals.
Well, and you know, you're talking about playing in front of him and wanting to play in front of Scott Wedgwood. And it also just seems like not a point of pride. What's the word I'm looking for here? Again, we talked about it in that first intermission where I think this team recognizes what management went out and did and said, hey, we think that analytically, there's a lot of numbers that suggest this team is playing well and we're not getting the stops. And it almost just seems like there's maybe is it a sense of belief now with Scott Wedgwood and you know, soon to be Mackenzie Blackwood, just with that position completely turning over. It almost does feel like they just believe in themselves a little bit more, and they're back to trusting their abilities more. Not to, again, beat this to death. You and I talked about the play with Calvin DeHaan in Buffalo with Alexander Georgiev in net before he got pulled. And there was a play where he kind of ended up in no man's land. And you and I have discussed that we think it was a product of the fact that he knew the right play to make, and that was to take away the pass and give Alexander Georgiev the shot. But he didn't trust Alexander Georgiev to make that save, so he kind of second-guessed himself. Calvin DeHaan second-guessed himself and kind of took himself out of position. That's the type of stuff that when I hear people say that the teams play different in front of goaltenders, those are the types of moments I think about, is when you don't trust what's happening behind you. It's not a conscious we like Scott Wedgwood better, so we're going to play better in front of him. It's a matter of trust. It's a matter of belief in the guy behind you. And this just looks like a team that feels like they believe in their goaltender and trust that they can play the way that they are supposed to play, and that the guy back there is going to do his job. That's how it comes off to me. And when this team is playing with that kind of confidence, you get the results that you got on this road trip.
I think back to, I want to say, the Nathan MacKinnon interview where, out of frustration, he says it feels like everything's ending up in the back of our net. And that's not single-handedly Georgiev. That's both the combination of Annunen and Georgiev. That sense probably does get in your head a little bit, that any time that you're trying to defend in your end, there is this overbearing sense of doom that puck is going in the back of the net. And I think to have a goaltender come up with some saves here and just some newness in net, it just sort of resets that doom cloud that was hanging over their heads.
Yes.
And it's great for Georgiev to get also a reset in San Jose. I think that doom cloud was hanging over everyone's head. And so I don't like to make it sound as if he was single-handedly the problem. But you're right, the team defended differently in front of him too, sometimes overcompensating for what appeared to be a lack of trust. And I think that's the difference, is it's new. So they're still building trust with Wedgwood, but I think it's starting to happen in real time that they're able to relax a little bit and trust that they'll come up with the saves. And so they can go about the breakout or the exit exactly as planned without needing to stray from how they need to otherwise approach that.
Well, and you just won't convince me that his personality isn't having a little bit of an effect on this. And just the way that he seems to immediately have integrated into this team's culture, into the locker room, the way they operate, the way they support each other. Scott Wedgwood just seems like a guy who completely understands it. I got a little bit of, I didn't get it. I saw it on Twitter yesterday, that there was just a little bit of people that didn't like the fact that Chris McFarland talked specifically about with both Wedgwood and Blackwood, bringing them in, that they felt they were guys that could fit really seamlessly into the locker room. And I think there was a lot of people who maybe took that as him saying, well, Alexander Georgiev and Jussi Sandinen didn't fit into the locker room. It's not that I don't think they didn't fit. I always get confused with the double negatives there. It's not that I think that those guys didn't fit in the locker room. I just think that Scott Wedgwood has a little bit of like leadership in the way that he does stuff. Not in like a, hey guys, I'm the backup goalie, everyone listen to me. But that lighthearted, making sure the room stays light while staying focused, staying serious, supporting each other. Again, we talked about that first speech he gave when he got the hat. He immediately credits Alexander Georgiev. Then the next one, he turns right around and gives the hat to Alexander Georgiev. Just constantly trying to build Georgie up when he was here. And I imagine that's infectious. That the team notices that. That, again, I'm not trying to be too funny. There's a chat that just came through a minute ago saying, nobody on the team has to worry about getting whacked in the shins anymore when they make a mistake. I do think that makes a difference. And I think that not only are they feeling the confidence and the belief on the ice, I think that it's translating over to the locker room. And it's just probably made for a little bit of a lighter feel around nobody's walking on eggshells.
The way we talked about it off air too isn't necessarily that between Annunen and Georgiev either was making the room toxic specifically, but they perhaps weren't adding in the same way that Wedgwood, in coming on board, has added an injection of positivity and levity to the room. And also that newness that he brings with him, he has not experienced the bad times with this team. Mm-hmm. And so I think he can bring a new sense of optimism around where the team is headed, going back to 2 tendies, 4 lines, 60 all year. Mm-hmm. I think that's sort of also infectious too, to sort of rewrite over some of the negativity that he didn't have to live through and experience here. And so maybe it's believable to him too, looking at this team kind of from an outsider's perspective.
Yes. Fresh perspective. I mean, how often we even talk about that here, Megan, at Guerilla Sports. There'll be times where, you and I are working on something, talking through some, I don't know, hey, Chloe, what do you think about this? And she just has the right little piece to add. Or, Blake and I will be talking, hey, Megan, how do you think we can da-da-da-da? And you're like, oh, what about this? You just need that fresh perspective sometimes. And especially someone like Wedgwood, who was in Nashville, to come in and be like, hey, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I've been through worse. They're going to scratch my whole team over there.
Yeah, we can still get this turned around. Everyone calm down. Let's run through this game here real quickly, Megan. Nathan MacKinnon opens the scoring just over 6 minutes into the game. A really nice play through the neutral zone. We talked about it in the first intermission. Wins a race, wins a battle, separates from a defender, and then a really nice shot. Classic Nathan MacKinnon fashion. As time was winding down in the first, it was Mikko Rantanen who finds the back of the net for his first of the night off a really nice feed from Cale Makar. Mikko Rantanen gets the scoring started in the second period again. This one just under 6 minutes in. Again, really nice pass from DeHaan. Sharp angle shot by Mikko Rantanen. Finds a way to beat Tristan Jarry. That pushed the Avs lead to 3-0. You're thinking, all right, they're in the driver's seat. Everything's good. Just put a nice little bow on this one and get home. Not quite the case. Cody Glass gets his first of the season just less than 2 minutes after Mikko Rantanen made it 3-0. Cody Glass gets a little bit lost on the wall, walks in on a quasi-mini breakaway and beats Scott Wedgwood 5-hole. That was the one that you and I both agreed. If you're Scott Wedgwood, you probably want that one back just a little bit. Then in the dying minutes, just over a minute to go, Michael Bunting took a great feed from Erik Karlsson to make it 3-2. And you and I were sitting here at the second intermission, Megan, going, okay, well, what changed? What happened there in the second? This went from they're running away with it to now hold on to your butts. And we said they needed to dial things up in the third and that they needed to get some contributions from guys that weren't on that top line. It wasn't necessarily depth scoring, but Val Nichushkin comes out just under 4 minutes into the period and scores one of the most Val Nichushkin goals that we've seen. So big, so strong, so hard to knock off the puck, drives the net and tucks it, makes it 4-2. And it felt a little bit like the Avs started to just pull away from there. Arturi Lehkonen off a beautiful feed from Mikko Rantanen made it 5-2 with just under 10 minutes to go. And then Mikko Rantanen sealed it with the empty netter, just under 5 minutes left to play. In regulation, Nathan MacKinnon was looking for him all over the ice before finally finding Mikko to cap off the hat trick. That puts us at our final 6-2, Megan. I started us off with goaltending. Broad strokes, your thoughts on this game, 6-2 win for the Avs.
Well, I've seen some criticisms around the top line lately, especially pointed at the power play because it just hasn't been converting. And that's still true of tonight. But it's easier to forgive the frustrations there when the 5v5 scoring is producing at this clip. And I think looking at the Val Nichushkin goal to kick off scoring in the third period, it was actually a dicey start for Colorado. They're spending a lot of time in their own end, perhaps missed calls that didn't go in their favor, and they could have easily become frustrated by it. But instead, Val Nichushkin sees an opportunity to force a turnover at the defensive blue line and create an opportunity for himself from hard work. You look back at every goal scored tonight, there's hard work somewhere in the play to make it all possible. And that's true of Val Nichushkin. A lot of speed, a lot of power too, to beat his guy, not only coming out of his own end through the neutral zone and then again on the re-entry. It's all born from hard work from the top guys, but I specifically keyed in on the second line. Coming out of that second period, I'm looking at the top guys with no criticisms. They are showing up for this game exactly as they need to, doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I want to see the second line get going. Val Nichushkin helps to right that ship a little bit. You know, I still think it was an off night for the second line, but a lot of things can be corrected when you swing the momentum back in your favor after a rough start in the third period, because things started to go well for them after that.
Well, and like what we were talking about in the second intermission, in those types of instances, I don't need the second line to be buzzing around like a top line all night. If that were the case, they'd be your top line, not your second line. And to your point, you can kind of make some of that stuff go away with a strong third period performance by taking
timely goals,
by scoring some timely goals and helping your team out when they need it. When, hey, we let a 3-goal lead slip away. The top line is buzzing. They're playing really well, but they need some additional support. Second line being able to come in behind that, give a little bit of support, and then get out of the way for the top guys to keep going. That's what you're asking for. Again, yes, you'd like to see it a little bit more evenly distributed night in, night out, but that's true of probably every team in the NHL. We'd like to see our depth guys lean in a little bit more often. Let's talk about that top line, because you are right. Nathan MacKinnon in particular has been receiving a lot of criticism recently. Mikko Rantanen, even though he's buzzing along 18 goals, I feel like anytime he goes more than a period, if he doesn't have a good period, everyone's, oh, Mikko Rantanen, too lazy. Oh, wake this guy up. Oh, someone, he just keeps buzzing along, Megan, even on nights where he's seemingly doesn't have it, finds a way to contribute. Tonight's a hat trick. Let's start with Nathan MacKinnon. I thought he was outstanding again tonight. 5 points. When Nathan MacKinnon is at his best, he's driving the bus, whether he's actually contributing from a points perspective or not. We saw that, I believe it was in that last home game right before they left for the road trip, where Nathan MacKinnon, he didn't have any points, but he was outstanding. Tonight, I thought the production matched what we saw for the play.
Was that the Edmonton game, do you think?
Yes.
I think I agree with that assessment. And that's where it's like, okay, he's doing a lot of the right things. He's going to be rewarded soon. Just have some faith in the talent that is Nathan MacKinnon. And even after his first goal tonight, I had made a joke off air about if Nathan MacKinnon doesn't start scoring again soon, he looks like he's going to kill somebody. And even after his first goal tonight, he still didn't look satisfied. He looked like a man on a mission.
I looked at you actually even and made the joke, and you were like, I don't know.
I still think he's good. Again, I don't think he's actually going to harm anyone, but he is a man possessed in that mode. And I think I've heard Riker describe it as video game mode for Nate. And honestly, speed is so much of what helped the Avs to topple Pittsburgh, because in terms of creation on either side, it was actually pretty close throughout the whole of this game. And thankfully, Colorado's giving it right back, but Pittsburgh blocking a lot of attempts from Colorado. And so it took some speed then to counter what Pittsburgh was doing to stop some of the creation from getting dangerous. So speed from Nathan MacKinnon, a key part in this. Teammates, obviously, that can keep the pace with him. You kind of talked about needing to see more of that in the third period. And I look at that Arturi Lehkonen goal, and it's absolutely born from speed. Obviously, Val Nichushkin's individual efforts born from speed, but also similarly still all hard work. And I like to see that top line working together too. You know, the connection of the passing play on the Lehkonen goal, it requires a great entry from McKinnon, and it's not necessarily his usual theatrics. It requires a little bit of work below the goal line and a quick no-look pass to Rantanen, who's got a guy behind him too. So the whole thing had to unfold very quickly, but they found each other, and so you could see that connectedness that has maybe felt lacking in a couple of these games. It's finally starting to pay off for them.
Mm-hmm. And I talked about it in the, I believe it was the Carolina game, of the team building on good things that they've done. And that was what they didn't do in the Carolina game. But I think every game since then, they've gotten better. I actually think they were doing that in games leading up to the Carolina game. And I feel like they rounded out this trip by exactly what you're talking about, stuff that's starting to finally go their way. And it's not just flashes in the pan. They're able to translate it from one shift to the next, one period to the next, one game to the next right now. And I am interested. I'm very excited to see what this brings out of this team coming back home in a much better spot than they were when they left out on the road. From a points perspective, from a roster perspective, from a morale perspective, I'm going to be really curious to see what they can do when they get back home and add Mackenzie Blackwood into this rotation. I got a few questions queued up here in the chat. Do you have anything else you want to get to, Megan, before we go to the questions?
No, I was ready to go to questions too, because there's a lot of great points in some of the comments, questions people have submitted tonight.
Nice. Awesome. I'll start. We'll trade off. We'll go
That's
back and
perfect.
forth here. All right. This one from the chat. Serious question here. What will fans at Ball Arena chant for a good save now? Blackie or Wedgie? Will we just get a universal Woody? The last suggestion that I do think is there's just blanketed one chant for both goalies. I don't know what Mackenzie Blackwood's name is. Wedgie, I imagine, will be the go-to chant for Scott Wedgwood, but I don't know what. It might just be Woody.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what they might call him. And honestly, goalie chants, does every goalie have one? Because I feel like there's some names that are probably a little tricky to come up with them.
Well, and I feel like for Eustace, they did Juice.
That one makes so much sense.
Yep. And then for Georgiev, they did Georgie. I mean, Wah just used to get Wah.
It really feels like Wood is going to be the easiest thing here.
And again, you could do Woody and just use it for both.
And then, Miles Wood does something.
right. Just keep it going. Yeah, just keep it going. But a good question. And not, again, 10 days ago, 11 days ago, Avs fans were dealing with completely different goaltenders than they are tonight.
What a new fun thing to have to worry about.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a nice lighthearted question.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. All right. This one was a little bit down here. Our bad goalies were a personnel problem. Our softness was an identity problem. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Avs have been playing complete 60-minute games with Middleton and Smith in the lineup. Toughness isn't about fights. It's about completeness. We've talked a little bit positively about Middleton. Maybe not like the perfect game to capture some of the things that he's been doing well, but now that we have a Keaton Middleton bobblehead.
Yeah, we do. Look, this is one thing that I think has always been underrated about this version of the Avs, the post-COVID Avalanche, just using that as a demarcation line, had nothing to do with COVID, that this team isn't tough. And, I've seen people say stuff for like, they need to bring someone in to combat Ryan Reeves. People were upset when they moved on from Curtis McDermott. And even when they had McDermott, when McDermott wasn't in the line, there was a lot of people that were saying, oh, this team isn't tough. Oh, this team, like that just said, toughness isn't necessarily about fighting. It's how difficult are you to play against. I think so much about what Nico Sturm told me right after he got here at the trade deadline back in 2022, when he said, I'm hard to play against. And I don't mean that in the sense that I'm going to put you through the glass and into the third row, but I'm always in your hip pocket. I'm always going to finish my check, and I'm always going to battle along the wall. And I think that's the type of version that's the type of toughness this version of the Avs is. They're tough to play against. They're physical. They don't go away. A guy seems to learn every 6 weeks how strong Nathan McKinnon is, and I just don't know how that message hasn't gotten around to the rest of the league. It always takes him dropping somebody in open ice for everyone to be like, oh, that's right. Trying to hit him usually isn't very fun. This is a tough team, and I think that gets undersold a lot.
I do, because they don't always play tough. I look back at the Carolina game, and I think that it was an issue for them and is part of why they struggled in that game. And so I think it is interesting to see Middleton then get in games following that. He is as advertised in what he does with the Eagles. I think, too, I've gotten some questions about why not Ludwig instead of Middleton, because Ludwig is also billed similarly as a tough player. And I wonder if it's as simple as Middleton having even more familiarity within the Avs systems, having played in Colorado with the Eagles who operate so similarly, that there's even maybe a little more trust there. I think there were some mistakes in Ludwig's most recent game. I don't think they're entirely his fault.
Right.
But I do, because it was the Carolina game. It was not everybody's best showing. But Middleton obviously adds toughness, and I think it inspires toughness throughout the team too. But it also goes back to the details and the work ethic, because to your point, the way in which they are tough is just by being strong in battles. I think they were that way tonight, looking at someone like Lecky being a puck hound. And that is a different sort of tough, kind of like what you described with Nico Sturm. And they have success. It's part of Bednar's identity. And so he needs them to execute in order for things to work on their end too. And so that's where they do sometimes fall short. But I feel like that's a decision, and not because they lack the toughness. They just kind of have to take those extra 3 strides and finish assignments, and they end up on the right side of things usually.
Let's go to the next one here. This one's from Keaton in the chat. Heard anything new on Miko/Avs salary talks? Well, I mentioned to you part of the way through this game, Megan. I said, oh, you might want to get this guy signed sooner rather than later. I haven't heard anything new. I talked to some folks throughout this week here that are like, yeah, they'd like to get it done. You and I were commenting the other day. I know CMAC, was wanting to get this done sooner rather than later, not letting it go too far into the season. I haven't heard anything new. That I don't think that's anything overly negative. That report was out there a couple weeks ago that he was maybe thinking that he could get upwards of $14 million on the open market. You and I were saying, yeah, maybe that's true, but pump the brakes. That means 12.25 per year over 8 years instead of 14 per year over 7, which is money that the Avs would be able to do. Especially if the salary cap does end up having the bump that is reported.
Going back to the Middleton-Smith conversation, did you have any thoughts on Giovanni Smith's debut with the Avs?
What was his final ice time? Do you know? Do you have it in front of you?
I do. It was 8:19.
More than I thought. I thought he was fine. I noticed him a couple times out there being physical. I made the joke to you because it looked for 1 second like he was the one who maybe took a tripping penalty. And I was like, send him down. But it wasn't him. It was Ivan. I thought Smith was good. I'm essentially looking at that as like another AHL call-up for this group. And you found another guy that could contribute, look good, and especially on his first night in Denver, or with the Avs, not in Denver, but with the Avs, playing on instinct, and I think you liked what you saw. Physical, aggressive, not afraid to mix it up.
I think I'd agree with that assessment. They're still down plenty of bodies right now that we'll probably see some more of him, and he has more NHL experience under his belt than Prishepov, who I really, really like.
I agree.
But I see the value in getting him in some games, especially since San Jose had him clear waivers before coming here. There's flexibility and ease in his utilization, and I don't love that he took a penalty in his debut when I specifically asked them to be disciplined, but I also know that sort of comes with the territory in him and how he's played as a player historically. But I think he was tied in the team lead for hits with Chris Wagner at 4. So he's one of the guys that Bednar would probably have described as loud in that sense. A shot on net, couple of hits, couple of takeaways. I didn't specifically notice them. They end up in the NHL stat sheet at the end of the night. And I didn't necessarily notice him in a bad way.
A lot of things end up on the NHL stat sheet at the end of the night that shouldn't be there probably.
Yeah. So he didn't get the penalty. He got one later in the game.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't Ivan.
That was
Ivan served the too many men. Giovanni took the tripping.
That was what I thought. Because they showed the replay for Giovanni. tripping a guy, and then it cut to Ivan in the box. I was just very confused. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch to make sure I get this penalty right.
I don't want to hold it against Shivani Smith. He was fine.
He was fine. I'm with you. I got one more in the chat. How many more do you have?
Actually, I haven't picked any new from the chat. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll go with this one. Then if you find any more, we can do that, and then we'll jump out.
That sounds perfect.
Do you guys think Mikko and Kale's production is going to hurt Nate's chances for the Hart again? No. What I do think is going to hurt his chances is the fact that he won it last year. You've got to have a really exceptional season for PHWA voters to give it to you 2 years in a row. So I think the number one thing that Nate's going to be fighting is that he just won it last year. He's going to have to have a really exceptional season where he kind of pulls away from the rest of the pack.
I think it is going to be hard, and it's a good problem to have. And I don't know that he worries too much about it when there are other bigger aspirations that he's chasing.
Especially now that he's got one. He can
absolutely
don't care anymore. Yep. You got any more?
No.
You can say no. You don't have to.
Yeah, I didn't pick anything out. I wasn't thinking to go in the chat. I'm sorry.
Let's see. Yeah, I think we're good. I'm anxious to get back around the team, anxious for them to get back in town, and anxious to get a chance to talk to Mackenzie Blackwood.
Yeah.
And just see how he starts to fit into this group. I think we've turned a page on this Avalanche season, one way or the other, regardless of what happens with the results. I'm not saying this game tonight or even this road trip means they turned the corner, they're good. But you've absolutely turned a page on this season with what you've done in net, and I'm excited to see what the Avs do with this next chapter.
When you look at how things were at the start of this road trip, it felt grim. There's no reinforcements on the way. And then Ross Colton drew back into the lineup, and then they added 2 new faces. Obviously, that meant some departures as well, but it's been a big change up with Colorado, and this road trip is a great thing that they should build momentum on and start stringing together some wins, because we've seen them get some good big wins that uplift their spirits, but then it ends in some kind of a disappointment, you deserve that outcome. I think you're capable of better. I want to see some consistency from them coming home.
I'm with you. They haven't been able to build on long portions of, or not even long portions. They haven't been able to build any long portions out of any amount of their sustained success. So I'm with you. It'll be nice. It would be nice to see them take what they did really well on this road trip and continue to build on it. And look, you're back in a playoff spot. You're above 500. Don't look back.
Don't look back. Let Scott Wedgwood and his positivity guide you.
Don't look back. I love it. That's going to do it, guys. Woo!
Also, I just want to stop and appreciate an insane Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen game.
Yeah.
Seeing Colorado Stars be stars, it's really nice to see. I think it happens enough in Colorado that maybe we take it for granted sometimes. It's really special to watch these players.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. That's going to do it for us here tonight, you guys. We will be, what is tomorrow? Wednesday. No show for us tomorrow, but we'll be back at the rink starting on Thursday. Full off day for the Avs tonight. Yeah, that's going to be a long flight back from Pittsburgh. Not that it was going to be a bad one. That's just going to literally be a long flight back, almost 4 hours. They'll be getting in probably home around 2:30 tonight. So they got the off day tomorrow. 4-1 on the trip. I think they've earned it though, Megan. So we'll be back at the rink on Thursday. Plenty more content coming from us this whole week. Thank you guys so much. We've talked about it a couple times. These are shows that we've been wanting to do for over a year now. Being able to, be here in the studio. John does such an amazing job getting all this stuff set up for us, and we wanted to be able to use it and do some of these shows with you guys. So we'll have more throughout the season. We'll also be back on the road, depending on, the trip, when, where, time of year. Then once we get back into the back half of the season, you guys know we'll be there bringing you guys everything along the way. But thank you guys so much for supporting and watching these shows. We've had a ton of fun doing them. And it's nice to just start getting these done, Megan, because we got some great response on the one. I think you and I were kind of jonesing to get back in here for more. So it'll be, we'll keep it going. So thank you guys so much. Jesse, Montano, Meghan Angley, John behind the glass. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will have more coming for you guys this week. Thanks so much for watching. Stay warm. Bye, everybody.